of this. So maybe my thinking was correct, that he would have been the person to officially announce the unfortunate news to our country. Also to have with us the former Attorney General of our country, Mr. Anil Nandlal. Also to have Mr. Raymond Gaskin, social commentator, another young member of parliament from the PPP, Mr. Vikram Bharat. And of course we had Dr. Joey Jagan. And also in the audience, I can see a former minister, or two former ministers of government, Dr. Henry Jeffrey and Mr. Hari Prasad Nokta, and former ambassador to Cuba, Mr. Devi Ali, and all of you people, we thank you very much for coming out. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I had the timer actually going, so Colin heard it. So we'll try to stick with that. I'll now invite Mr. Raymond Gaskin to address us, and he likes to be introduced as simply a social commentator.
Thank you very much. I have a couple minutes. I first met Dr. Jagan in 1965, January, in the Soviet Union, when he came to visit us after he lost power. The meeting didn't go well because we were all waiting for him, especially me, over the Duncan Sands letter. And everybody wanted me. Actually, they selected me to deal with Jagan on the Duncan Sands letter in those days. Of course, I was 23. I was quite aggressive. Now I'm an old man of 76. I was glad to take on the job. So I waited for him. And he came, and we didn't have a good meeting. It was over the Duncan Sands letter, January 65, Soviet Union. I'd gone to the Soviet Union 62, having started with the PYO in 61. So it's 57 years I'm around this place. Youth man, listen to me. 57 years. It was a group of 10. I came back in 67. I must say I'm the only one that came back out of the 10. So it was a Saturday morning. I arrived from the airport. I borrowed my sister's bicycle and I rode over to Jagan's clinic in Charlotte Street. And I told him I just arrived. And he said, where the rest of them there? I said, oh no, but I here. It was a Saturday, and I started at Freedom House the very Monday. It was very difficult times. So I've been around a long time. At Freedom House, of course, we did a lot of work, political work. Those are very interesting times, 67. Didn't work in the Mirror and the Thunder and all of that. You know the whole story. And Gimpex too I worked at. And in those days, we were, I think the PPP was becoming, what I'm going to say in these couple of minutes has essentially to do with the whole evolution of the PPP. From I would say from the 60s, when it proclaimed to be a Marxist, Leninist, Communist party, member of the International Communist Movement, right up to when Jagan died in 97. I'm going to tell you what I think about that characterization in 97, but it's not that what it was in 67, I don't think. So the PPP has gone through that whole evolution. That's what I want to talk about today, essentially, when we talk about Jagan. Because, essentially, I want to boil down Jagan. Jagan is the man who, when we remember him as one of the leaders in the struggle for independence. We can't remove that from history. He and others, Ashton Chase, Hubbard, Janet Jagan, even we have to include Westmus, Carter, Sidney King, the whole gang of them, not only Cheddi, but Cheddi was the leader of the entire thing. And of course, we know the party split, and we know what happened later. And Cheddi went into opposition for many years after 64, when he was a victim of a lot of intrigue outside to remove him. Of course, the 53, when you look at it quickly, 53, the party made mistakes, I think. A lot of hotheads in the thing, a lot of radicals in them days. Carter, Westmus, Sidney King, and all of them. Not understanding that you can't be too radical with these people. They'll knock you off, the British, which indeed they did. You can't do it. They didn't understand that at the time. They were too radical, and of course exuberance is the word they talk all the time. And I think the PPP made the mistake again in 62 with the Caldor budget. The Caldor budget was too early, it was ahead of its time, and gave the enemies of the party and the government an excuse to start the struggle to overthrow the government, which is what exactly happened after 62 February events, starting with Caldor, but it was part of a bigger plan. But 62 was not the right time for Caldor budget, in my opinion. Guyana was still a colony, and it was not the right time. But they repeated the same mistake, this exuberance, this radicalism that was misplaced. And then, of course, the party lost power and went to opposition for a long time. Joined the international movement. And when we talk about Jagan, besides remembering him, first of all, as being the leader in the struggle for independence, we have to also remember him as an internationalist. Jagan is the man who taught us what I saw internationalism. Many of us before Jagan never knew about Arbenz and Mossadegh and all these people. Jagan told us about Mossadegh and Iran in 53 and Arbenz and all these people. He was always internationalist, and he taught us all that. We come to know the world as a result of Jagan's own predisposition to internationalism. Of course, socialism is internationalist by its very nature, and therefore it is not surprising. But we consider ourselves also internationalists in the same way that Jagan himself did. And when we remember Jagan, we have to remember him as a main person in the struggle for trade union rights in this country. We cannot forget that. We have to emphasize it, and we have to insist upon it, and we have to inscribe it when we talk about Jagan. We know the story about the Gawu, and Jagan was also president of Sawmill and Forest Workers Union. I think all of you know that. Did you know that, Nandalal? Oh, good. So Jagan was very prominent in the trade union movement in those days. We have to remember that. It's one of his main characteristics, a main plank of his work over all these years as a politician and as a leader. And then we have to remember Jagan as a man, in my opinion, who popularized socialism and Marxism. The Akaba College is not any longer, but it used to be there. I lectured there years ago, in the old days. But Jagan is the man that taught us about socialism. After the suspension of the Constitution, socialist literature was banned. It was a criminal offense to have Marxist literature in those days, after the suspension. But we all got to know about socialism and Marx and all of that, and we get to read it and learn about it. I'm glad I did. So Jagan is the main man that popularized socialism, Marxism, Leninism, and all these big words. I hope we still keep reading it. And then, of course, when we remember Jagan, we remember him now as a leader and a man in government, a developmental man, a man who is in the business of development of country. We have to remember him and separate him from all these isms, that he's in government and developing country. Agriculture, education, somebody talked about. I don't want to go over the whole list now, but that's how I remember Jagan. In these 5 years, I think I've mentioned, the leader for independence, the struggle in the trade union movement, the development of the country, the popularizer of socialism, and internationalist. But besides that, we come now, what I want to say briefly before the chairman cuts me off, is 92. 92, the big change in the PPP. The PPP-C, the PPP bringing in the C on the eve of the elections. This is a big change in the party. It is my considered opinion that the PPP in so doing moves to the right ideologically. Move to the right. They have not yet since then moved back to the left. Jeffrey came, well, you definitely on the right. Jeffrey came from PNC left. He was too left for them, but Jeffrey still too right for me. But the PPP moved to the right with the Civic. A lot of the Civic are right-wing people. Nothing wrong with being right-wing. Each man is entitled to being right-wing, left-wing, or whatever wing. I'm left-wing. But the PPP Civic brought a lot of right-wing to the party, into government, including, I would say, Asghar Ali, Sam Hines, Barajagdeo, Sekudita, all these people, Rana Lali, Kim Kisun, all these kind of people. And the party moved to the right. We haven't, Jagdeo is right. So we haven't fixed that yet. We haven't fixed that yet. And that is why today, in this audience today, we don't see Rohi and Ramatar and the other left-wing people intra-old people. I think the party is showing signs of a fracture. It's not a good thing. The party leaders have to deal with that. I can't deal with that. I'm not a member of nothing. But it's not a good idea. But I'm suggesting that now we've come to the point where this country, we have a lot of difficulties in this country. We have to go back to struggle, serious struggle, anti-imperialist struggle. People think there's imperialism dead. There is no imperialism. I got news for them. Imperialism is alive and kicking. We have to go back to Jagan, go back to basics. We have to go back to socialism and go back to anti-imperialism. That's what I'm saying. We need to do that. If we do that, we're in big trouble here. We have a lot of problems. I'm going to list 3 of them, then I'm going to close off with you. What's bothering me? What bothering me? My time's up. I wrap up right now. What bothering me? The problem with Guy Sukkot. And what is happening to the workers of Guy Sukkot? I don't like to say things like if he were alive, what he would have done. But I know if Jagan was alive, all the nonsense that's going on there with the sugar workers would not have been allowed to go on. Totally ridiculous and out of order. And he would never have allowed it. He would never have allowed it. And we allow this thing all the time. To throw all these people on the breadline all the time. And tell them, come next year if it's severance, come next year, all that nonsense. And the PPP has to go back to basics and go back to struggle. Simple as that. That's bothering me. Second thing.